Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Foxy New.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back to IBFP University, where we educate casuals. Look, let's just break it down. And let's start off with the myth of Tyson Fury. The myth is Tyson Fury always fights to the level of his competition. So when you break down his fights where he struggled and looked bad, it's always been told that Tyson Fury fights to the level of his competition. When you see he got rocked and hurt very badly by Steve Cunningham, Tyson Fury was fighting to the level of his competition. When he got dropped and hurt by, Nevin Pajic, the guy was fighting to the level of his competition. When he fought Otto Wallin and Wallin was pressuring him, backing him up, and he couldn't keep Wallin off of him from coming forward, he was fighting to the level of his competition. When Tyson Fury was almost knocked out by Nikola Furter in the third round, he was fighting to the level of his competition. You've seen this over many fights where people have said that Tyson Fury is fighting to the level of his competition because he's literally struggled with bums. Well, he rises to the occasion for the big fights, and for the smaller fights, he simply fights to the level of his competition. He doesn't fool around with the bigger fighters, but with these lower fights, he gets distracted, he fools around, and he's not 100% focused, so he fights to the level of his competition. That is the myth. That is what's being said. Now let's just break down the absolute truth and debunk this myth. We start with Tyson Fury versus Tom Schwartz. When you look at Tom Schwartz, Tyson Fury came in there and put a clinic on Tom Schwartz. Tom Schwartz is a bum just like, Nikola Furter, just like Steve Cunningham, just like, Nevin Pajic, just like Otto Wallin. It's the same tier and level of competition. But Tyson Fury didn't fight to the level of Tom Schwartz. He outclassed him. Tyson Fury, once again, he didn't fight to the level of Francisco Pianeta, or should you call him Pinata, for the way he got beat. No, he didn't fight to his level. He outclassed him. Then he fought, who else? Sefer Safiri in his return. And Safiri in his corner threw in the towel after 4 rounds. He didn't fight to the level of that competition. He never looked bad 1 second of that fight. So fighting guys like, Pianeta, Safiri, and Schwartz, all bums, all of the same tier, Tyson Fury looked dominant. But at the same time, you're struggling with Cunningham, Nevin Pajic, Nikola Furter, Otto Wallin. How does it make sense? Let's just be honest and unbiased. It's not about struggling with the level of competition. It's simply about you taking advantage of fights that are stylistically tailor-made for you than others. Let's be real. Look at Tyson Fury, and people will point to the Deontay Wilder fight. Well, look, the first fight, Tyson Fury, who has all the skills in the world, who's an elite boxer, who has a high boxing IQ, who has elite head movement. All things Deontay Wilder doesn't have. Deontay Wilder doesn't even have a high ring IQ. The guy is a one-trick pony who looks to land a right hand, and that's it. And Tyson Fury outboxed him and won 10 rounds in the first fight. So as horrible as Deontay Wilder is, why didn't he fight to the level of Deontay Wilder? Because he outboxed him for 10 rounds in the first fight and should have won the fight. They should have given him the victory. So he outclassed him in the first fight. In the second fight, he won every second of every round. So where was he fighting to the level of his competition in that fight? See, we got to be honest and unbiased. See, people don't want to look at that. They want to overlook that, and they want to look at stuff like, well, Steve Cunningham hurt him. Nevin Pajic hurt him. Nikola Furter almost knocked him cold out. You see these guys that Tyson Fury is struggling with, and you see the guys who he excels against. At the end of the day, Deontay Wilder is stylistically easy for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, and the fact that he fights to the level of his competition is nothing but an excuse, and it's been debunked. Tom Schwartz, Sefer Safari, Francisco Pianeta, both Wilder fights. Look, we all know it's an excuse to overlook his flaws. We've exposed that. Tyson Fury only fights fights that are stylistically tailored to him, and that's why he looks fantastic in those fights. What happens if Tyson Fury is thrown in fights with guys, that stylistically are not suited for him? Look at Dillian White and Andy Ruiz. I've stated this before, but people, wanted to give me problems for stating this. Dillian White and Andy Ruiz are stylistically hard fights for Tyson Fury. But when you mention this, People overlook it. People say that Tyson Fury dominates both of these guys like they're nobody, but he didn't do that with Otto Wallin, Nicola Firth. He didn't do that with Nevin Pagic. He didn't do that with Steve Cunningham, and these guys are level below Ruiz and White. Let's be real about this. But, Tyson Fury was almost knocked out by a bum in Nicola Firth in the 3rd round. Otto Wallin opened up a cut on Fury that should have had the fight stopped. So you telling me that Dillian White, elite level left hook, couldn't hurt him? Is that what you're telling me? You're telling me that Otto Wallin's pressure is better than Andy Ruiz Jr.'s pressure and hand speed? Let's be real. And look at the fights. And people always goes back when you mention Ruiz and White. They say, well, look, Tyson Fury beat, Deontay Wilder. He beat, Vladimir Klitschko. Let's be real about it. Stylistically, they fight nothing like Dillian White. Tyson Fury has only excelled in fights that stylistically suit him. That's it. Both of these guys were looking for one shot at a time on Tyson Fury. These guys weren't bringing the constant and consistent pressure needed to derail Tyson Fury. It's really just as simple as that. And then when you look at it like this, when they go to Andy Ruiz, they say, well, Fury outboxes Ruiz just like Anthony Joshua did. That makes zero sense. And this is what I mean why people don't really think. Tyson Fury does not have Anthony Joshua's power. And Ruiz has a granite chin. Otto Wallin caught Fury. Cunningham caught Fury. Nevin Pagic caught Fury. Nicola Firth caught Fury. All of these guys caught Tyson Fury, and he couldn't even keep Otto Wallin at bay because, he didn't have the power to keep Wallin at bay. But he'll keep Andy Ruiz at bay, who has a granite chin, and he couldn't stop any of these other guys, and all these other guys caught him? Are you serious? Deontay Wilder and Vladimir Klitschko looks to throw and pick their shots one at a time. They don't throw punches in bunches like Andy Ruiz. It's a stylistic nightmare. Fury doesn't have the power to keep him off of it. Yes, he's going to outbox him to some degree, simply because of a height and reach advantage. But the pressure and power is going to give him fits in that fight. This is why Tyson Fury turned down offers to face Dillian White. This is why he turned down offers to face Anthony Joshua. That's why he would not be willing to take an Andy Ruiz fight if it was offered. Stylistically, they don't fit the style he is successful using. Let's be honest and unbiased. Look, here's the truth. And the truth is, Tyson Fury does not fight to the level of his competition. The reason why people say that is just an excuse used to overlook his flaws and dismiss his suspect performances. This myth has been debunked.